Alright, I want to show you a meme build. So this is a somewhat automated mechanical bees minion instability deal. If you've seen a traditional bees build, that's what they call the Summon Raging Spirit minion instability build. Minion instability, if you're not familiar, says minions explode and reduce to low life, dealing 33% of their life as fire damage to surrounding enemies. So the build focuses on increasing minion maximum health and then blowing them up on enemies. Now, animated weapon has a significantly higher base health than Summon Raging Spirit, so that makes it a much better skill for this. But there are a couple very good reasons why people normally go with Summon Raging Spirit, and they're both related to how clunky animated weapon can be. The first is that you need something to animate to make animated weapon work. You need a lingering blade in the ground, or you need some items on the ground to animate. And if you need them, you need some way to cast them, and that's an extra step in a build that can already be a little bit clunky. And the other thing is that it doesn't have any additional way to make the animated blades die faster. So the way that we are killing our animated weapon is through Infernal Legion, which says minions from supported skills take 40% of their maximum life as fire damage per second. And that'll work, but it's a little bit clunky, and the way that SRS gets around is they additionally have an amulet that says that the Summon Raging Spirit takes some of their life as chaos damage per second, so they can get there a little bit faster. We're going to try and alleviate some of those pains with automation, and we'll see how it goes. So the main idea of this build is that we're going to use Arcanist brand to throw a bunch of brands out that are making animated weapons, and then cast Bladefall or have a different set of automation, which I'll talk about in a bit. Before I talk about that, let's actually get the normal numbers up. To quickly spawn a bunch of these blowing up weapons. And this is how we're doing it. So we have this node, Rune Binder, which says you can have additional brand attached to enemies, so we can have 2 brands down. And then we take these rune nodes that gives all this attachment range. So our Arcanist brand attachment range is 48, which is pretty decent. And it has a hit rate of 1 1/3 per second, and we got 2 of them, so 2 2/3. And there's a potential way to ramp that up significantly, but I'm going to show the most stable version of the build, and then I'll tell you about some of how it gets more memey later. So if we're doing this 2 2/3 a time, it seems to calculate this pretty well, and path building 2 2/3 of the average damage plus ignite, a little over 1 million. I didn't check the numbers, but that looks exactly correct to me. So what we're doing is we're throwing these brands on, they're casting animated weapon, but they need something to animate. So the one way that we can do it, and I've actually done a build like this before, I got to like level 94 in hardcore, so I still found the main league, not the temporary league, was through Spell Totem with Bladefall, Spell Cascade, faster casting, and then what I was doing in that one was I was doing cast while channeling animated weapon, and that allowed me to continue to move and not have to stand there and cast the weapon. That worked pretty well. But cast while channeling took a 30%, it got a 30% nerf this league to the damage from any skill coming off of it. Now, Arcanist brand has some pretty severe nerf as well, but it actually doesn't affect this build, to my understanding, and to Path of Building's understanding. And Path of Building has gotten better about understanding these things, so I'm going to sort of trust it because it makes sense to me, and it seems to make sense to Path of Building. And that's supported skills deal 63% less damage, but cannot modify the skills of minions. And what I think it's saying, and now you can put it on animated weapon, what I believe this is saying is that it's the skills, well, first off, it's the skills of the minions. That's fairly straightforward. But that the explosion of the minion instability weapon is considered a skill of the minion doing secondary damage. The secondary damage isn't relevant to the point I'm making, I guess, but it's a skill of the minion, so it's not taking this Arcanist brand penalty. If it is, I think we're still okay, the DP, because it's only 4% less if you look between the deal 63% less damage and deal 59% more damage with hits against the branded enemy. Because as far as trash mobs, they're going to get wiped out probably just by the Infernal Legion. But definitely with the Infernal Legion plus the pop will kill any trash mob. That isn't really an issue. And against bosses, that's probably what we've branded. So it's only 4% less damage if it doesn't work the way that I think it does. But I'm pretty sure that it does. Path of Building shows that it does. Arcanist brand has no impact on the DPS or the average damage here. It will with this node on because it says enemies take 5% increased damage for each of your brands. But if I turn that off, and I toggle this, it doesn't do anything to the damage. So as far as my understanding, and as far as Path of Building understanding, no effect on minion skills. Need to re-put that on. Okay. There is some alternate ways to do this. Two of them I'm going to present here. So the items I have on right now are a cold iron point and a generic shield. It would be better to have 2 cold iron points, but I don't have 2 cold iron points. So this is what I have set up, and this will obviously give you some block and some stuff like that. But Femurs of the Saints is another option. And what you could do with Femurs of the Saints is you could do Cyclone, Cast Wall Channeling, Bladefall, Spell Cascade. Well, you could do that even without Femurs of the Saints. The Femurs of the Saints version, though, also has Desecrate and Bone Offering in there, and it consumes corpses while you're going because it has Desecrate and Bone Offering, and that allows me to do a version with Corpse Pact where that significantly ramps up the number of activations per second on Arcanist Brain. And that version may just be better, but I'm going to present the most stable, for sure it's going to work version now, and I'll worry about getting more extreme with it as the character develops, assuming that it's developing decently. And then another way we could potentially automate the blades, besides Spell Totem, besides Cast Wall Channeling, is to use Katava's Thirst. So if I do Katava's Thirst, first off I take a bit of DPS loss because the other helmet was giving us some minion life. But could definitely be worth it with automated. And then what we would do is we would use this combination. We use Vortex, which has some unique properties. So it is the only spell in the game that's instant and hits. And it's important that it hits because Archmage can only support skills that hit. So on Vortex, we have a mana cost of 113 with Archmage and Culling Strike. I think we needed the Culling Strike. Oh, we don't need it anymore. Okay, I guess the mana numbers have moved since I originally put it on. Okay, you don't need Culling Strike. Might want it anyway, just because the extra potential there. But anyway, so just Vortex and Archmage does it. You can put that on your left click because it's instant. And that means every time that you're going around, you're triggering spells in the Katava's Thirst helmet. So what we would have in the Katava's Thirst helmet would be Bladefall, 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 Spell Cascade. And Katava's Thirst says you have a 50% chance to trigger those spells anytime you spend 100 mana to use a skill. It won't do it for multiple copies of the same skill, but it will check every copy of the skill. So, for example, you can't hit 3 chances to trigger 3 blade falls and create that many blades. It will only go off once. But if it checks one and it fails to trigger, it'll check the next. And if that fails to trigger, it'll check the next. So in the end, you have an 87.5% chance to be triggering blade fall every 1.8 seconds with Spell Cascade. And Spell Cascade, so it generates, Bladefall generates 1 blade for each round that it goes through, and it goes through 5 rounds by default, so 5 lingering blades. And Spell Cascade says cast it in front of and behind, or to each side. Now I'm not remembering, let's look. In front and behind. Okay, so that creates waves there, so it triples the amount of blades created. But Bladefall does say if you trigger it, you only get half of that. So you get 7.5 blades instead of 15 blades per cast. But 7.5 blades every 1.8 seconds is enough for the number of animated weapons that we are casting. So what we can do is with this Katava's Thirst automation, we can just walk around, have Vortex on our left click every time it goes. We have a very good shot of getting those 7.5 blades. If not, hopefully we still have some around. If we're just mapping, there's also going to be a ton of items that are dropping that can be then raised with animated weapon. And there's a setting in like never sync filters, and if you're not sure how to do that, I can talk about that in another video to enable to show the different kind of weapons that animated weapon can make. So you can be quite certain just mapping around that you'll have that up. And against a boss, it might be better to do the spell totem setup. But if you're just mapping, you just want to run around, I think that'll work fine. So the meme dream of this build is that with this animated weapon arcanist brand, activation range is 48, and we can potentially have a whole bunch of these brands going at once. I haven't taken the nodes yet, but where's brand here? So we could take this, you can cast 2 additional brands, and there's a mastery that is also you can cast 2 additional brands. So theoretically speaking, we have 7 brands shooting off all around while we're mapping. If we have that many brands, we're going to need to increase the number of animated weapons that we're doing past Katava's Thirst. We'd have to use either the Castle Channeling or the Spell Totem. But theoretically, you could have up to 7. I have it only set up to just the basic, which is 3. But they should be bouncing around pretty quickly. And the dream is that it plays like Armageddon brand. And I think that is a reasonable comparison because Armageddon brand has a delay before the meteor comes down. And that's less than the delay before our animated weapon blows up. So hopefully, because Armageddon brand is a pretty smooth playstyle. So if we could achieve that with this build, I think that would be awesome. Like I said, I haven't tried it with Arcanist brand before, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays. And yeah, just hopefully it's just automated bees, which I think is a fun kind of build. Cluster jewels can significantly increase the damage, but I wanted to present the build without the cluster jewel first. I don't know if there's anything else I need to talk about. Look at the skills. Yeah, this is definitely not intended to be a full build guide. This is me setting up a meme, and I'm going to try and make it work. Yep, that's me for now. I'll talk to you in the next one. Macros out. Oh, I should talk about defenses. Did I talk about that? Oh, what happened to our resistances? What did I do? Oh, we were relying on the helmet, and then I was showing the automation. Okay, now we're good. Alright, you're going to need to get the resistances somewhere else if you're doing Katava's Thirst, but assuming that, we have great numbers for the defenses, and we have solid block chance due to Bone Offering. So, okay, that's the last thing. Now I'm out. If you have any questions or want to talk to me about these strange meme things, let me know. Bye.